Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the breakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. The Rick Wilson will be back on Monday. So we are 4 days away, 4 days from the election. And not only is it Friday, it is where I'm from, it's called Cabbage Night, the night before Halloween. Some people call it Mischief Night, some people call it Goosey Night. Where I'm from in Paramus, New Jersey, it's called Cabbage Night. Don't ask me why. It's a whole long thing and very unique to Bergen County. But we make sure that we always have some type of special pumpkin carvings in my household. So we are debuting the Tara household pumpkins. My husband and I took the time to carve them. Not only are we telling people to vote Biden in our pumpkins, we're also big fans of The Mandalorian, if you didn't notice. So we've got The Mandalorian, we've got Baby Yoda, because wherever he goes, I go. Correct? Yes. Shout out to Mandalorian, which starts today. I'll be watching it later. So if you have special pumpkins, you have any cool carvings, send them to us in our Ask the Breakdown. Hashtag Ask the Breakdown. We're always asking for you to send us questions. So send us your pumpkins too if you have them and they're festive and you want to show them off. Also, if you have any cool pet costumes, send that too, because there might be a tiki sighting tonight. We'll see. We never know. Which reminds me, it is Friday, everyone, which means that we play the drinking game on Fridays. So if you see a tiki sighting, drink. You know the rules. If Trump tweets while we're on air, take a drink. And for every 1,000 views we get on YouTube, we'll take a drink. And of course, my personal favorite, if anyone's ever indicted or there's a major breaking story on a Friday news dump, we'll take a drink. So who's coming up tonight on our show? We have Matt Kaufman will be joining us. He worked for Focus on the Family, and he wrote a little piece about Christians and Trump. We'll be talking to him momentarily. And then we'll be joined in a little bit by our Lincoln Project brethren, Fred Wellman, and Zack Czajkowski is back by popular demand. So send us your tweets. Also, we have the live Zoom room tonight, so we can throw that up if you want to join us in Zoom. The live caller, you can do that. There's the information. The voicemail's old school. The Zoom is new school. So check us out on Zoom there, and we'll be answering your questions later on in the show. So let's get to tonight's first guest. Matt Kaufman. He's a former editor of Citizen Magazine. Hi, published by the conservative Christian organization Focus on the Family. And he recently wrote an essay, Why Christians Should Dump Trump. And it was published this week in The Bulwark. Matt, welcome.
Hi, good to talk to you, Tara.
So in your piece, you talk about how you know a lot of people who are supporting Trump and people who are Christians, but who are having similar conversations with you about their displeasure with Trump. Give us a sense of what some of those conversations are like. Because from what we see, it seems like the majority of Christians are supportive of Donald Trump, evangelicals particularly.
And as I say in my article, I think it is fair to say that a majority of those, at least those who would be considered conservative Christians, probably are. But one of the points of my piece is that there are a lot more of us than people realize who just, for many, many reasons, can't take him. We see the damage that he's doing to the country, and we just have to break away for various reasons. And I have heard from a lot of people who, as I mentioned in the piece, you see, we may not even be looking to talk about politics, but something Trump says, something he tweets just comes up, and one of us groans or sighs or rolls their eyes or whatever, and the other one picks up on that, and we very quickly realize, oh, this conversation is safe. Here's somebody who actually shares these feelings, and before you know it, there we go. We're bonding with each other. Since I've written the article, I've heard from more of them, and so far I've heard from, there have been some people who aren't that happy, but I've heard from still more who are saying, thank you for writing this. Thank you for writing this because we feel the exact same way.
What's interesting is that you say that when you have these conversations, people are almost relieved, like, yes, there's another one that feels the way we
Mm.
do. They somewhat feel alienated because it seems as though that you're in the minority, just like those of us who are Republicans who have spoken out against Trump, that we're in the minority when you have over 90% of Republicans supporting Donald Trump, for goodness sakes. But when you in these conversations, I'm assuming the issue of Trump being a con man and his moral character being a disaster, all of the things about him that are really antithetical to a lot of things that we as Christians preach and believe. How do you think the people who still justify it reconcile that?
I think it's the habit of mind it's the ideological tunnel vision that just always sees the greatest dangers on the left. And no matter what's going on with Trump, I think there's just a feeling that, some people will try to dismiss it. They'll say some of it is the media out to get him, this or that. But I think that only goes so far, just because so many things we hear from Trump, we hear unfiltered, and he can appall people without anybody needing to edit his words or anything. You listen to him live, there's plenty of things that will appall you, and I just think that their attention is just locked in on, got to get those judges, got to get those policies, got to prevent the left from coming to power. And that just sort of tends to override everything in their minds, and it's a really dangerous mindset, but I really can understand how people get into it. It's the habit of a lifetime.
Yeah, that's interesting. In your piece, you say that you found, quote, I'm reading from it. You said, I found that the Democrats argument doesn't make me feel even a slight tug in Trump's direction. If anything, it makes me feel the reverse. It makes me feel it makes me feel a more urgent need to reject Trump and Trumpism emphatically and publicly. How so?
Yeah,
Why?
absolutely. Because if I look at things that are genuine threats from the left, the more urgently I feel we have to do something about those, the more urgently I feel we need a movement that has the moral credibility and the moral integrity and consistency to really convincingly address those. It's hard to say I'm pro-family and then back the guy who is ripping children away from their parents as an intentional deterrent tactic at the border, and maybe just out of a touch of cruelty. It's tough to say that we're for the guy that we believe in a respectful and protective and honoring attitude toward women. I'm speaking especially from a male perspective now on that, and then talk to the guy who brags about, or back the guy rather, who brags about getting away with sexual assault and how his accusers just weren't good looking enough for him to molest, and on in that vein. If we're going to have any credibility, we cannot do it by being by being people that are defending a guy like that. It's damaging to our own character, and it's damaging to our credibility in the eyes of the world.
So you do say that. You say that, when it comes to supporting Trump, that it damages the overall good news, the role of Christians, and what we're supposed to be doing as being the light of the world. Um, how do you, when you have these conversations and you say that to the pro-Trump friends of yours who are Christians, and you say, like, this is damaging Christianity itself by us them being hypocritical and giving Trump a pass like this. They wouldn't give their pastor a pass. They wouldn't give their neighbor a pass. They wouldn't give their husbands or wives a pass if they behave like that. Why Donald Trump? How do you explain that to them? What's the reaction to that argument?
Sometimes it gets very hard to get to that argument because you have a wall of resistance that's even starting to form before you even get that far. But what I find is, I think people's reflexes take them to deflecting. What about the Democrats? What about this or that? What
Yeah,
about
what about it?
Antifa? What about the media? And it can be very difficult. Now, that's for the people who really resist it. Mind you, that argument has a lot of sway on a lot of people as well, but those are the people who already tended to feel this way before I ever got to talking to them.
I can relate to this because I grew up evangelical. I went to a non-denominational church, and lifelong church family friends of mine who've known me since I was 16, 17 years old. I'm now 45. So they've known me virtually my entire adult life, who I no longer speak to, who have called me a hater. I'm talking about people who are in church leadership,
Yeah.
pastors' wives, not of my church, others, people who's supposed to be leaders in the church, elders in the church, have the types of things that they post on their Facebook pages, and all of a sudden now we're haters, and they question our salvation and and belief in Jesus
Hmm.
if we don't support Donald Trump. I have never seen anything like this. I almost feel it's like a spiritual affliction of some sort. How do you think we get past this? Because it's so ingrained in the church now. What happens when Donald Trump loses? Do they just continue to, support him and his cult of personality, or do you think there'll be some kind of reckoning in the Christian church after this?
Boy, that is a good question. If I'm going to guess off the top of my head, I think you're going to get a mixed reaction. I think you're going to get the people who really liked Trump's style to begin with, or some of them who just super committed to him. I think probably will dig in deeper, but I think there's going to be more other people who are going to start. I think the spell may be broken with some of them because they've been forcing themselves, sort of contorting themselves, trying not to pay attention to things that they have to know deep down. If this was Bill Clinton, they'd be all
Right.
over it.
Listen,
You
I
know?
came of age in the political 90s with Bill
Yeah.
Clinton, and I remember a lot of those folks. I remember Focus on the Family and Ralph Reed and the Moral Majority and all of those guys freaking out about the immorality of Bill Clinton, and Republicans like Lindsey Graham and others talking about how character matters, and all of that is out the window for a couple of political wins. And in your piece, you talk about, yeah, the judges and the pro-life issue. Okay, but that's not worth it. What made you finally decide to support Joe Biden? What's your case for him?
Well, actually, in my article, I did not say whether I support Biden or whether I support voting third party myself. And the reason I didn't get into that is that it is such a big thing for people to dig into, just to break away from Trump to begin with, that I don't want to
Right.
say, and then you must vote for Biden, or then you must vote for a third party candidate. What I will say, just quick summing up the arguments, is there are good arguments and good conscience both ways. And the argument for Biden is that he is a decent man who will set a decent tone, who will observe the norms, and he is the guy we are going to get if we do not get Trump. The argument going the other way is I still cannot support him because of his position on abortion and some other things, so I have to vote for somebody who is a third party candidate. People can go either way on that. But I will say that I think they're both very respectable arguments. And I also think, just going back for a second to what you were saying about the reaction you would hear from people who you grew up with or people in the churches you grew up in, I'd also say that I think this is probably one reason why there may be more of a shy Biden effect in the polls, if there's a shy anyone effect, then there is a shy Trump effect, because those of us who live in a conservative Christian culture know how hard it can be, or how intimidating it can be for a lot of people to say, yes, I'm going to take that extra step and vote for the Democrat.
Yeah, that's interesting. Not a lot of people talk about the shy Biden vote, but I think it speaks volumes, and not in a good way, that if you do not feel comfortable in your church family being able to say, I'm voting for the Catholic candidate who goes to church and mass every Sunday and who's a man of faith, who's been married to the
Yeah.
same woman for 40 years, who hasn't cheated on his wife, who hasn't paid off a porn star, who doesn't curse at people, calling them all kinds of names, doesn't use God's name in vain from the podium. I mean, if you feel uncomfortable in that environment with the people in your church family, I think maybe it's time to rethink who your church family is. That's my opinion on that. Matt Kaufman, thank you so much for joining us. Check out his article in The Bulwark, Why Christians Should Dump Trump. And thank you for speaking out. It's not easy. I get it.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate the time with you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Well, on that note, I think it's a good opportunity to bring out one of the Lincoln projects from the archives. Check out MAGA Church.
I execute judgment on you, COVID-19.
Oh, Rama.
I caught it.
Anybody in here a person of faith?
Let's all pray.
We should pray.
We pray.
Say a prayer.
We pray.
Pray. Let's pray.
Earnest prayer.
Let's pray.
I brought my Bible.
God walks on White House grounds. You need to send in that $3,000, $35,000, $100,000 check. You're going to write your checks to Paula White Ministry.
In the name of Jesus.
Oh,
I don't do a lot of things that are bad.
Let pride fall.
Try and do nothing that's bad.
Let pride fall.
I don't like to have to ask for forgiveness.
Absolutely and hallelujah.
Every life brings love into this world.
We command all satanic pregnancies to miscarry right now.
Woe to the nation that calls evil good
So I think this was a blessing from God.
and calls good evil.
You know, a lot of people will laugh at that ad and mock it, but the sad part about it is there are millions of Christians in this country who follow these people. And I often say that I don't want to be anywhere near any of them when it's their turn to face God, because they are leaders and they will be judged more harshly for leading their flocks astray. And, you know, if that makes me if that makes me the apostate, well, then so be it, I guess. But this is so the hypocrisy of the evangelical community and the Christian community concerning Donald Trump has been one of the hardest aspects of the entire Trump era for me to reconcile. And I was honest when I was talking to Matt about church family, people I've known my entire adult life that I no longer speak to, that have called me all kinds of names, acting very unchristian-like over me pointing out Donald Trump's moral failings and the hypocrisy that the church is using in order to get political wins. I don't understand how that helps preach the gospel. But that's on them. They have to answer for it. I do not. Let's get back into it. We are bringing in our LP brethren in a second. But first, I just want to go back and remind people that we're 4 days away from this election and 80 million plus people have voted already. We are breaking early voting records across the board. Texas has already voted 100% more than they did in 2016. They've already reached that threshold. Also, Hawaii. You know who else is voting at a really high rate early? A couple of places. Georgia, 86% already voted compared to 2016. North Carolina, 85% already voted since 2016. Florida, 81.6% have already voted compared to 2016. Arizona, 80%. That is remarkable. We're still 4 days away from Election Day. Like I say, yay, democracy. And in Pennsylvania, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later with Zack and Fred, but Pennsylvania, you know, they have absentee balloting for the first time, no fault absentee balloting, so they have a crush of mail-in ballots. 5% of Pennsylvanians voted by mail in 2016. We're up to, let me double check, 34% already. That is an unbelievable increase. So if we don't have a result from Pennsylvania on election night, do not freak out, because they cannot start opening those ballots and counting them until then. So don't freak out. This is a good thing. That means more people are participating, and that's what we want. Now, what else is happening? Okay, COVID. It's not going away. If you're watching Trump rallies, you're in la la land, because it's not turning the corner. They haven't defeated the virus. We had 91,000 new cases just yesterday. What did Dr. Fauci say? He warned 100,000 cases a day by election day. Looks like we're right on pace for that. That is a disgrace, absolute disgrace. And while people are dying, 900 plus people died yesterday alone. And then, of course, you have that degenerate Don Jr. on Fox News last night, wired out of his mind. If anybody saw that, it was disgraceful. Playing it down. Oh, well, you know, the number's almost nothing. Don't listen to Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Don't listen to those doctors. Check my Instagram. You know, my Instagram, I explain it all. Are you freaking kidding me? We're supposed to take medical advice from a coked up Don Jr. on Fox News at 10 o'clock at night, ranting like a lunatic, telling everyone else, don't listen to Dr. Fauci and Dr. Gupta and the people who have been in medicine their entire adult lives for decades. It's unbelievable. These people are unbelievable. And on top of that, they're still out there running around talking about Hunter Biden and his emails. 1,000 people almost died yesterday from COVID and are continuing to die. And this is what the Trump campaign is focusing on days before the election. That doesn't sound like a winning message to me. What do you think? Now, let's bring in our guest tonight and find out what they think, if they think I'm right or wrong on that. Fred, Wellman, welcome. And Zack, where are you? There they are. Hey, guys.
Good to see you again.
I'm thrilled to have you.
Yeah, Tara, I got to disagree with you.
Oh, which thing?
I think Don Jr. really gives great medical advice.
Good grief, man.
It's nuts.
It's nuts. I mean, the Twitter went off last night after that clip. I mean, people were just like, is this guy serious with this? And I'm like, and I said, this degenerate has the audacity to attack Hunter Biden. You got to be kidding me. There's something else that's gone on with these idiots. We found out what happened at that Trump rally the other night. Rick and I talked about this, about how, people were left out in the cold, literally, in Omaha. Well, surprise, surprise. Well, probably not to us, but it was because the Trump campaign was too damn cheap to pay the bus company to bus the people out of there. That is so just infuriating, but also on brand. It's on brand for the Trump.
You beat me
people.
to it.
Yeah,
it's totally on brand.
Right.
I mean, it's not surprising at all. Really, and everybody knows they jip everybody off. The bus company's like, we're not going to hang out and hope they pay us because everybody knows they never pay their bills.
Right.
So why hang out and not get paid?
And advance is one of those things where if it's done well, people don't really notice, and if it's not, people really, really notice. And it's been a rough year between the Tulsa rally, between that. I mean, their poor advance team. They've been taking a lot of L's this year.
And you know what? There should be no excuse for that. They had a freaking $1 billion to run their campaign, so they had plenty of money to pay people to do it right? Only the best people. Apparently not. You know what else they don't pay their bills? This isn't the first time. It was reported by the Center for Public Integrity that they haven't paid 14 cities for Trump rallies since 2016. Almost $2 million outstanding. So when Trump goes into a town, goes into a city, he's not paying the necessary security bills and things like that when he's there. 14 cities. That is ridiculous. And
that's the thing about Trump.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense to be outraged, but there's no point in being surprised anymore because it's just the same song and dance playing out over and over and over again. And it's incredibly frustrating. And we've got 4 days to save our democracy and stop this nonsense. But truly, at this point, what would surprise you? Like, what could he do that would really shock you at this point?
I know. I mean,
I don't want to think about that.
Right?
Wait for him to drop his pants on stage or something like that.
Oh, he would never. He doesn't want to be shown as a loser. We'll never see that, Fred.
Just a matter of time. Just a matter of time.
Oh God, that's an image I don't ever
It's gonna happen.
Ever want to see. It's bad enough the Stormy Daniels comments about mushrooms that I never see the same way again.
But now I put that thought in your head. It's in your head now.
I appreciate it.
You're never gonna forget it.
Oh my gosh, we should add that to the drinking game. Anytime there's a reference to Trump's manhood, take a drink. There is another lie that he always tells when he's at these rallies. He's especially in Michigan. He told it again recently. He brags about how he was man of the year in Michigan. He was never man of the year. But we have something to show you guys. Take a look.
When I got the man of the year, I got man of the year in Michigan a long time ago, like 12 years ago. Nothing to do with politics. They wrote man of the year. I came here and I gave a big lecture on the fact. 12 years ago, I was named man of the year of Michigan. Can you believe it? Long before I thought about it.
Now, of course, we can't let Trump go out there and just lie and put out fake news, so we helped him out.
Yeah.
There he is.
There you go.
There we go.
There it is.
He can add that to his wall
Nice
of covers in his
Very
office
flattering.
back in Trump Tower, where we hope to send him January 20th. Oh my goodness. So before we get into some more, I want to run our meanwhile because people always like to know, well, what happened since the last time we were together? So let's take a look at meanwhile and we'll talk about it after.
I kept hearing about new infections, but I was like, well, why aren't they talking about deaths? Because the number is almost nothing.
This morning, COVID infections are crossing the 9 million mark, with cases rising in nearly every state.
The numbers that you put up are stunning. This is going to get worse.
These people don't believe in science. They believe in whatever gives them power and whatever gives them control.
NPR has obtained an internal document that shows the U.S. is gathering and analyzing daily hospital data, but not sharing it with the public.
Cases are up. Why are cases up? You know the bottom line, though? You're going to get better. You're going to get better. And then you're going to be immune, and it's a whole thing, and it goes away.
Hospitals in Tampa, Birmingham, and New York had ICUs that were over 95% full.
We're going to have many more hospitalizations, and that will inevitably lead to more deaths. We've got to do something different. We can't just let this happen.
Not yet. Not yet.
COVID, 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 COVID,
Tiki
COVID,
time?
COVID, 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 pandemic, COVID, COVID, COVID.
Oh my gosh.
Subtle.
Holy moly, the
that's
LPTV
awesome.
graphics team is
I
good.
mean, we are professionals.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I tell you, graphic design is my passion.
You know, we may laugh about it and poke fun at it. We only do that to stop ourselves from crying, but it's really actually very serious. As I said, you know, Dr. Fauci his hair is on fire, screaming like, "What are we doing here? We can't do this." Zack, do you think that this will be? I think it is, but do you think this is going to be the ultimate demise of the campaign? What are we seeing out there with people's reactions to this?
Absolutely. So in states that have high COVID infection rates, we actually see Republicans that are about 50% more likely to not support Donald Trump. What's frustrating and what's scary is that as soon as COVID gets under control or plateaus, Trump's numbers tend to rebound. So not only is it the right thing to do to try and get COVID under control and save people's lives, it's the smart thing to do politically, and they still aren't doing it. But we absolutely see an impact. As COVID spikes, Trump's numbers plummet, as do the Republican senators, as do the Republican governors. And I would be mighty, mighty concerned if I was any Republican incumbent who's up for re-election this year, because it's going to be a tough cycle for them.
Yeah, I mean, this couldn't have gone any worse. I mean, the timing could not have been any worse politically for Trump, and he had a chance. You know, when he got COVID, he really had a chance there to kind of do the phantom pivot that everyone's been wishing for years, and he went the complete wrong way. I mean, Fred, between that, you have him, you know, the way that he has just been so cavalier about COVID and so cavalier about people's deaths and suffering. Right. It's the same thing with the military. I mean, he just continues to attack the military and military families. And I mean, are we starting to see some movement here with the military vote? Because I feel like we are.
Right. Well, that's been the remarkable thing, is it? We said, I think previously when we talked, you know, a Republican incumbent president, it should be a walk-off home run to get the military vote. But Trump really is in trouble. We saw the Military Times poll, which showed him underwater with military members. We saw a recent poll from, I think it was NBC, showing that military households were at a 50-50, which is, again, astounding. You know, it depends on who you talk to. He's doing well with veterans, but active duty military is suffering. And we know why, right? He just doesn't get it. He treats them like crap. You know, we could review it all, right? We could go all the way back from the beginning, from getting into office and issuing the transgender ban through Twitter. We could go into the most recent one, the bounties, which were like 150 days now since there was reports of Russian bounties placed on our soldiers' heads, and he's not reacted to it. He's called it fake. As a commander-in-chief, he's just an utter and total failure. And that's where you see it. You see the fact that they're not, the numbers are bad, that the military has just lost their faith in their commander-in-chief. And that's a scary place to be as a soldier, to have so little faith in your commander-in-chief that he has your best interest in mind. And clearly Donald Trump does not. Yeah,
I mean, he often uses the military as political props. We've seen this happen often, and it's incredibly frustrating. You know, anyone who studies authoritarianism talks about how certain things like that are props. Everything is a prop for you to put forth the, you know, to keep the facade up. And I just think it's insulting. Could you imagine if Barack Obama
That's why he's
did
doing
that?
these airports.
Right.
Yeah. No, and that's why he's doing these airport things. If you look at the way he sets up his airport rallies, right? Parks Air Force One there, flies Marine One in, Parks Marine One right behind him. I mean, this is a guy who's constantly using, you know, military equipment and the military structure to sort of pump him up as some kind of strong man. And of course, we all know he's the weakest man possible. Our colleague Tom Nichols points out you couldn't have a weaker, more pathetic lack of a manly man than Donald Trump. But he uses the military as props consistently, and I think it's frustrating. It's frustrating for a lot of us who are professionals who served our whole careers in the military to see it do nothing more than a prop, and then to turn around and then spit on him. When he got COVID, I think he still believes that Gold Star families gave him COVID. It wasn't his friends. It wasn't the fancy people at the Supreme Court nomination event. It was, whenever he brings it up, he talks about how the Gold Star family, they loved him so much and they hugged him and kissed him, and he's not going to turn them down. And the funny thing about that story is we did find out later from the families that they were specifically instructed not to touch the president. If you look at the pictures, they're actually not touching him. So it's even worse. He blamed them for giving COVID, and then he made up a story about being hugged and kissed that didn't occur. It's just a bizarre, I don't know, the he's fucking nuts. I mean, we could.
Tiki agrees.
What can you say?
Tiki agrees.
The guy's effing nuts. I mean, it's just, It's just,
oh, we had a tiki sighting.
I'll tell you what.
Tiki
there it is. Oh, there's tiki.
Take a drink, everybody.
Cheers. There you go.
Cheers.
There you go. That's right.
I've got to
see the cat.
I've got a Bon and Viv, and Fred's got a cider, so we're drinking some manly drinks.
We have an Abe sighting.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
That is remarkable.
Can you be more specific?
That is remarkable. Happy Halloween, everybody. Abe Lincoln wants to
I don't know.
do drinks with us. I love it. We should have added that to the drinking game. If you have an Abraham Lincoln sighting, take a drink.
There you go.
Funny. Fred, you actually informed me on that story about the Gold Star event. When everyone was trying to figure out when did Trump get this? What's the timeline? They were being real shifty about that. And now we know why, because he was probably infected already at that point. And they didn't want to admit that because, it's the president of the United States that's getting these Gold Star families sick. And then they go back and they're taking this back to their hometowns across the country because they all flew in from everywhere. And then he turns around and lies about it and tries to blame them. It is just so indicative of what a just immoral, horrible person that he is, and how just he despises everyone. And yet these people seem to still fall for it to some degree. I just don't understand why they fall for the con. But you had some really good reporting about it.
And then, and it also goes to the whole family, right, Tara? I mean, Don Jr.'s thing last night, I sort of had a little bit of a fury myself on Twitter. As you know, some people may not know, I actually worked in a COVID hospital in New York City at the height of the pandemic.
Oh, good for you.
I was fortunate to serve as the administrative chief of staff. So I've got some great passion about the COVID pandemic, having seen the effect it has on people, having seen the effect it has on our caregivers and our medical professionals. While I was there, we worked for New York Presbyterian Hospital, which is a fantastic hospital system. And while we were serving in New York during that crisis, the head of the emergency room went home and committed suicide because she caught COVID and couldn't go back to work right away. And she had a mental health crisis and committed suicide. This COVID pandemic is devastating, not just to the patients, not just to America, but to the people who are working in the hospitals, which, just today, Trump's up at his rally saying that the doctors are making a lot of money. They're actually, when people die of a heart attack, they say it's COVID because they make more money. And it's just appalling. And then you got Don Jr. saying that deaths are down to nothing. Well, as I mentioned on Twitter, my ex-wife, Crystal, lost her favorite aunt, Brenda, a lovely lady, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Died in like 5 days on a ventilator alone. So to see someone like the president's son or the president himself essentially saying that those numbers don't exist, it is horrifying. And it really goes to that psychosis we talk about with this family, that no one matters to them but them.
That's right.
And like we said, politically, we're in the middle of a campaign, and most Americans are seeing this. Most Americans are seeing that they don't matter to the president of the United States. That's he's got to go.
Zach, I've often said that my friend Paul Begala, he wrote a piece that the closing argument for the Trump campaign is America drop dead, but vote for me. I mean, that is terrible messaging. And Fred, I'm glad that you brought up that Trump said that today. He has said this, he's repeated this lie in the past about how doctors and medical professionals are somehow profiting off of this. And that's their profit margin is their motive for the COVID deaths. And This has been debunked several times over. It started from some QAnon wackadoodle tweet somewhere, and it's become pervasive throughout right-wing media. A congressman tweeted about this, and now Trump is out there on the campaign trail dishonoring the hard work of men and women like yourself and first responders and frontline healthcare workers. I mean, the CDC said back in, I think it was June, that over 600 doctors had died from COVID. I'm sure it's worse by now. And these people are out here. This is what they're trying to tell us. That, it's almost nothing, and they're trying to profit from it. It's sick. It's twisted. There's something really wrong with this. I wanted to show one of the ads because we were talking about the military families. Lincoln Project recently put out another ad featuring women in the military. Let's check out that ad.
Since the United States first declared independence, American women have served in the military. Through world wars, Korea, and Vietnam, women served however they could, as nurses, mechanics, as pilots. Over the next 50 years, women's roles officially expanded to air, sea, and ground combat. In the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, women have commanded soldiers in combat. They fought bravely.
You just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss them. Right on your way. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy.
They rescued their fellow soldiers, saving their lives.
Maybe Brady
Must
was
be a
right.
pretty picture you drop into
John and
these.
Dennis thought I should be.
They were wounded.
You know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
They were taken prisoner.
I did try and fuck her. She was married.
Huge news, Sarah.
I moved on her like a bitch.
And they made the ultimate sacrifice for their brothers and sisters in arms. Women are heroes, on and off the battlefield. Donald Trump is too weak to respect them. He doesn't deserve to lead our brave women in uniform.
Veterans for Responsible Leadership and the Lincoln Project are responsible for the content of this advertising.
That's such a good ad.
Love
That's
that
so
one.
good.
So powerful.
I love that ad, and a great partnership. Veterans for Responsible Leadership. I mean, as we're getting close to the big day here, I'd got to give them a shout out, right? I mean, Dan Barkoff, who has been a great partner for us, former Navy SEAL, emergency room doctor. I call him at work, and he runs outside the hospital to talk to me. Veterans for Responsible Leadership has been such a great partner in the Lincoln Project, and the hard work they've done to roll things out. And that ad, they developed most of that with us, and it gets right to it, doesn't it? I was one of the guys who signed a letter after the grab by the pussy tape. I'll just say it, which is weird saying out loud, but here we are. And I signed a letter with 53 colleagues, mostly generals and a couple of us lieutenant colonels, saying that this is a man who has no business being commander-in-chief of a modern, diverse military. 40% of our military is people of color, is minorities. 15% is now women. This is not the military of our dads or our granddads. And a 74-year-old man who says things like that, who wrote tweets about how putting men and women together will inevitably be sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
He had no business being commander-in-chief 4 years ago. I'm glad we get a second chance to make sure he's fired this time.
And it's just so clear that no one and nothing is sacred, with perhaps the exception of Vladimir Putin and Russia. And Trump will go after anybody and everybody. I mean, generally speaking, is blaming Gold Star families for getting COVID an acceptable thing to do or a good move? I mean, and I would say Paul Begala, I read that piece, fantastic piece. The only thing I would disagree with is I think that is a coherent closing message, and I don't think Trump even has that, as nasty as it may be.
Right.
I mean, truly, what is his closing message at this point?
I think he's on a farewell tour. I really do. I don't think he's on a campaign. I mean, honestly, I think I saw it on the news today. I don't even think he's on a campaign. I think he's on a farewell tour. This is stroking his ego till he gets out.
That's fair because, how many times has he said, I wouldn't even be here freezing my ass off with you people if it weren't for the election, or, he's like, was it Arizona or somewhere? He's like, or Iowa, I'll never come back here again if I lose.
Iowa.
Who says that? Who says that? That doesn't sound like a victory.
He has open disdain for the people risking their lives to see him. I mean, he does not give a shit about a single person in those rallies. and he couldn't make it more clear, and they keep showing up.
It's it's unbelievable. Let's take a caller. I think we have our first live caller for the evening. Emily from Chicago. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Hi,
How are
Emily.
you?
Hey.
We're good. What's your question?
Good. We've been drinking, so we're good.
Good.
I hope you have been too.
Oh, yeah. So my question is, I grew up as an evangelical Christian, and I'm a former Republican. Now I'm a Democrat with no religious affiliation. Matt Kaufman's article really resonated with me, especially his point about the church's loss of credibility, moral credibility, because of their support for Trump. Personally, I've just been so disgusted by the way Christians have continued to justify Trump that the idea of even setting foot in a church repels me right now. So my question for you is, if evangelical Christians' continued embrace of Trump drives people away from the church, just like Trump is driving people out of the Republican Party, do you think that the Christian right's political influence will diminish over the years to come, even though they have the court majority that they've been wanting for so long?
That's a great question, Emily. And I'll take a shot at that, and then I'll let the guys follow up if they have something to say. I feel like, from what I've seen, if you heard the interview I did with Matt, that in the 90s is really when the Christian conservative group had their most power. They had their most influence. Under the Newt Gingrich regime and Dick Armey and what's his name from Texas, the Hammer. It'll come to me in a second. But that whole crew of Republican leaders, they were the moral majority, the Christian coalition, focus on the family. They had their most political power then. And we've seen it diminish and diminish and diminish since then. And Trump gave them hope to have political relevance unlike any time since then. So the problem with this, though, is that the Christian, political Christians they've disgraced themselves, and they're becoming a mockery now. And we see in statistics that less and less people are going to church. There's less and less people who consider themselves religious. And, that's not a good thing. Christianity, you're supposed to be spreading the good news. You're not supposed to be diffusing people, and losing people by attrition. So I think that this is not going to be good for the Christian political right, that they're selling their souls literally for political gains, and they're going to have to answer to a higher power beyond just political consequences in the future. You guys want to say anything before I go into the next one?
I think that's totally on the money. And, I think in the same way the Republican Party has driven a lot of people out, and that's led to RVAT, to the Lincoln Project, to so many kind of splinter groups that are growing as the Republican Party continues to shrink. I think we'll see something very similar happening with the religious right. There will be people that will walk away and will start something new. Some of those things are going to work. Some of those things aren't. But I think that there are going to be opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think you're seeing the split now.
Yeah.
One thing we talk about a lot in our discussion of the Republican Party is the Republican Party shrinking, right? What Donald Trump has done very effectively is shrink the Republican Party. And I think, as an outsider, and obviously I'm not evangelical by any stretch of the imagination. However, you can see that there is a schism occurring between those, the religious folks who are on the political, and they've seen the danger of this political the destination they're taking. It'll be interesting to see with the loss when Trump loses on Tuesday, which he will. Those who have tied their, you look at those pictures in the White House and the Oval Office of placing their hands on him and blessing him.
Ugh.
What happens to them? What happens to that form of Trumpism that's a religious-based Trumpism? I don't know. I think we're going to see some very interesting. I think it's one of the things on that long list of things we're going to see after the end of Trump. The pieces of Trumpism are going to go away.
We have a Lincoln sighting. We're adding it to the drinking game. We've got an aide. Take the drink.
There he is. I like.
It's so hard to keep a straight face with this.
I love that graphic.
I tried.
I love that graphic.
Oh, Tara, what are you talking about? There's no Lincoln. Here's Lucas Lincoln right now.
I love that graphic. kind of mojitos.
I love it. We have live action
Lincoln
characters
liked
on
mojitos.
Oh, he was definitely a big mojito
Oh, I'm
guy.
sure he's
on
a
a
mojito
Friday
guy.
night. This is amazing. Before we take our next caller,
You look good,
yeah,
man.
I mean, I just want to put the disclaimer out there because usually Rick does it, and the guys are in a bubble. They're in the studio in Salt Lake City. They get tested on a regular basis, and everybody wears masks, and the crew and everything else when they're not in the bubble. So be rest assured, we are being COVID. There we go. Abe is showing the mask. We are being COVID conscious and practicing what we preach. So just want to put that out there for anyone who was wondering. All right, let's go to the next caller. We have Ari from LA. Hi, Ari.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? How's it going, guys?
Hey, man.
Welcome.
Good to meet you.
So I think your guys' trolling game is genius. I think that there's not a lot of fun stuff in this election. Truthfully, I think everyone's super stressed out and traumatized, and I love that there's just a little bit of fun and maybe a little bit of joy in kind of deflating Jared and Ivanka. So I was wondering, on top of the boat and the trucks and all the craziness, are you guys going to do anything else? Like, I was like, are you guys going to do like some skywriting? Are you going to hire those planes with those crappy banners that, fly behind them when you're on the beach or something like that? I just thought, like, you're playing the game. You might as well go nuts.
That is awesome. Zach, maybe you can give Ari some hope that we have some other things up our sleeve. So for those who don't know, besides the billboards that we've been trolling Javanka with, Ron Steslow of our podcast fame, also a Lincoln Project co-founder, put out on Twitter today that we have upped our game. We now have a floating billboard that is on its way to Mar-a-Lago, as well as a mobile billboard that's been driving around Trump Tower in New York City. What else have we got up our sleeves, Zach?
So right now we've got land and sea, and I think the air is the logical next step. The only problem is we can't actually fly it over the White House because there's, of course, a no-fly zone. However, we can get creative with where we put those. So I think I wouldn't be shocked if you were to see, let's just say, perhaps a skywriter over Mar-a-Lago, maybe over Bedminster. And I think you're going to be seeing a whole lot more of these in the coming days, in the coming months, because, again, this isn't just about Trump. This is about Trumpism and his enablers. And there's an awful lot of enablers who don't have no-fly zones over their house, and we can absolutely do a skywriter there. There's an awful lot of water around this country, and we can certainly do more there. So expect to see a whole bunch.
What about international?
Ooh, what do you think? I mean,
go international. I mean, you never know. I mean, they do like to travel. Maybe they'd
follow them around.
Maybe some of their favorite destinations they'll bump into their billboards. You just never know. There's so many options.
Never quite know when Abe will
you can
be
also
about.
geo-target. You can geo-target by zip code, and so hypothetically, it might be a fun thing to do to just make sure that all of the Kushner's friends and neighbors see nothing but all of our ads all the time on their Facebook feeds and on their YouTube. Oh,
even more drinks.
Okay, Fred, cheers. Tara, cheers. All right.
Salut. Salut to the ultimate troll.
Man, we're gonna need an Uber.
On camera,
we're gonna need an Uber to get home.
Watching.
We're gonna need an Uber to get home. It's fine. Jesus.
Oh boy. Fred, cheers. They said.
Can I just?
Well, I've been known to cuss. That was a great question.
Yes, thank you, Ari from LA. Before we take our next caller, Zach, did you see Trump today saying that Kamala can't pronounce her own name and how he was trying to make fun of that, just acting like an absolute freaking child? And then he goes on and talks about how they're now canceling the election night party at the DC hotel. What is that? Do you think he's going to just be rage tweeting and from the White House? What is happening there?
Absolutely. I think he's going to be rage tweeting for the rest of his life, I mean, that seems to be the only thing
job
that he really can do anymore. And I mean, again, it's like nothing is sacred. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He probably deep down knows he doesn't know what he's talking about. And so he's just like word vomit all the time.
That's true.
To say that somebody doesn't know how to pronounce their own name, it's like it's guerrilla humor that's not particularly funny. And it's just nonsense, and we deserve better as a country.
It's bullies. But, I think he canceled that damn thing because he knows he's going to lose. And he's too much of a narcissist to stand in front of a crowd and admit defeat, right? I think everybody's like, oh, he's going to bunker down, he's going to fight. No, he knows he's losing, And a narcissist like him can't stand in front of his adoring crowd and admit he lost, that he's a loser.
That's right.
I mean, the
That's
guy,
exactly right.
I mean, the guy's terrified of that
You're
word.
so right.
He's going to be a loser. I'm telling you, Donald Trump, you're going to be an freaking loser in about 3 days. And he doesn't want to face his crowd. Exactly. So, he lives in fear of that term. But
I think he's scared that no one was going to show up like his rally in Minnesota today, which only had 250 people.
Well, right there. I mean, who's going to spend money at that crappy hotel now? I mean, it's all people trying to like buy food. Who's going to eat burned steaks at that shitty hotel if there's no favors to earn? It's like, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be a freaking ghost town.
I look forward to all the Trump properties going out of business in the next 3 to 6 months. That's the one silver lining.
Crappy.
Maybe the Saudis his buddies over there in the Saudis will buy him out afterwards, or maybe Putin will.
Bloomberg.
Oh my gosh! All right, let's take our next caller.
Perfect.
Oh, that's okay. We lost her, but
Hi there.
There we go.
Oh no.
Hello.
Hey.
Greetings. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, Jackie.
I'm Jackie and I'm in Texas.
Hi, Jackie from Texas. What part of Texas?
Woo-hoo.
I'm the Houston area.
Okay, I have very, very close friends that live
friends
in
watching right now.
Yeah, that live in the Memorial
I got friends in
section
Houston.
of Texas, and they own the Taste of Texas. If you've ever been there in Katy, one of the best steakhouses in all of Texas.
Yeah,
So if you haven't never been, check it out.
Taste of Texas.
So, what's your question?
Well, I've been on the phones, and today my task was Senator Paula Jean in Virginia, West Virginia. But I was just wondering if you had any news on how some of the Senate races are going, or anything along that lines.
Zack, our political director, is here tonight, and he can speak to that. How are some of those races going, Zack? What's it looking like in some of the closer races? Yes.
I think the fact that we're talking about Alaska as a winnable Senate race, and we're talking about Montana as a winnable Senate race 4 days from the election is incredibly encouraging. I can't say with certainty which are going to flip because, elections, that's just how they work. But we can tell you the ones that are in play right now. There are 2 Senate seats in Georgia that are winnable. There's one in North Carolina. There's one in Maine. There's one in Colorado. There's one in Kansas. There's one in Iowa. There's one in Alaska. There's one in Montana. And I think, there's a small but not 0% chance that we could win in Mississippi. And I'm sure I'm leaving a couple out. And the fact that this many races are in play, it really bodes well for the Democrats, and it really bodes poorly for Mitch McConnell and the Republicans because they're just on the defensive everywhere. Right. So I'm sure they'll be able to save a couple. I think in all likelihood, McConnell controls where the PAC money goes, so he's going to save his own seat, and it's going to be mighty tough for McGrath to get through. But in doing so, he's going to have to sacrifice a few of his members of his caucus. Yep. And we're definitely going to see it. I mean, Cal Cunningham is up. There's a poll today from Marist that showed him up 10 in North Carolina. This is a guy who got himself in a bit of trouble recently and is still seeing a bump in spite of that. And it's because fundamentally the voters care a whole lot more about the Republicans' failures on COVID than anything else that's happening. And that's why I think we're going to see so many of these seats flip. I'm expecting anywhere from 6 to 8 pickups.
That's incredible.
It's fascinating.
That's incredible.
What do you think
wait,
about,
we got a tiki sighting.
Momentum. I mean, you guys are pros.
We got a tiki sighting. We know what that means.
No. Oh, geez.
Oh, an actual one. An actual one.
There we go.
Love it. Where's your hat?
It's tiki time.
Tara, I'm getting wild. I'm cracking my second bond and bib of the night
I love
here.
it. Listen, we've
Got to slow down.
earned it. We've earned it.
Oh, wow. Wow. This gets better each time.
This is going to be off the rails.
Are those real? I want one of those freaking hats. Oh, there's the cat again.
That is so funny. What's funny is that every time we drink,
I want one of those hats.
They add drinks to the hat, which is funny. I don't know if people caught that.
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Let's go to a tweet. Will the Trump campaign be stiffing the U.S. taxpayer for all of the reimbursable expenses incurred during his frantic campaigning leading up to November 3rd? That's from Ann Sullivan, 99. Well, here's
Yes.
the thing, and they will claim that they don't have to pay anyone because it was part of his official duties, even though they have crossed the line multiple times. The Hatch Act is non-existent for them. They're really not supposed to be doing that, but they'll claim that they don't have to. I mean, Donald Trump has gone bankrupt how many times? 6 times. And why would he now all of a sudden find religion on paying his bills? All right. Who's next?
The most
Go
surprising
ahead,
thing
Zack.
Donald Trump can do in the next 3 months is pay those bills.
Yeah.
That's right.
He doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he's doing it. I mean, this is his campaign, right? When they lost $850 freaking million, they're using the official office of the president to campaign. This is the only way you can do it. The only way you can afford to campaign is I'm visiting on official business. So he flies into Omaha and visits the National Guard or whatever and calls it an official visit. But yeah, we're paying for the Trump campaign. Don't be fooled. The United States, America, the American taxpayers paying for the Trump campaign.
We've been paying for the Trump lifestyle for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
All right. We have one last caller.
All right.
Hi there. What's your name and where are you from?
Hello.
Hey.
I'm Kathy from Albany, New York.
Hi, Kathy.
And,
I love that compliment sweater.
Hey, guys. Oh, thank you. I always love your style, too.
Oh, thank you. I'm super cash. I get to be casual. I love it.
That's the one nice thing about all the Zoom stuff. So my thought/question is, like a couple other callers and your first interview, I grew up in the evangelical church, and like a lot of other people, I've since left it. But I also, the specific church I grew up in, I saw, we had a very charismatic pastor come in and kind of take over the place. And it basically became a cult of white grievance in a way that very similar to what I've seen happen to the Republican Party in the last several years. And there, to my mind, there has always been a connection there. Like I remember as a kid, the preacher would stand in the pulpit and rail about Barack Obama as the Antichrist and Hillary Clinton as the whore of Babylon. And if you don't vote Republican, you're going to hell, and the whole 9 yards. And I've come to the point now where I kind of think, you know, Stuart Stevens, it was all a lie. That's how I feel about the church that I grew up in. That specific one, maybe not the entire evangelical church, but so to me, when I saw Trump come on the stage in 2015, he felt very familiar. And I wasn't at all surprised that he took over the Republican Party, because I think there's a substantial base that really believes that whoever the Republican nominee is like anointed by God. And so that kind of cult mentality, I think, explains a lot about him. And it's like people get stuck into it, and then whatever he says, they have to believe, even if it contradicts reality or what they can see with their own eyes, because the faith is more important. So my question is, once Trump is gone, how do we reckon with that really pseudo-religious side of Trumpism? It's more than just a political nightmare, but that's actually like a belief system.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Wow,
Thank you
great
so
question.
much.
That's fantastic.
Man, she nailed it.
That's the $1 million question, or $750.
Yeah. That is
You know-
so that goes deeper into a societal problem and kind of how we got here. I often talk about John Dean's book. We interviewed John Dean on the program last month. He wrote a book called Authoritarian Nightmare with Bob Altmaier, who is a psychologist. And they delve really deeply into the psychology behind these people. And they talk about the religious aspect of it and how this coincides with authoritarianism, and where white ethno-nationalism and grievance plays into this as well. And also how cult-like it is. And I think diagnosing that and how we fix it is far beyond our pay grades here, but it is certainly an area that will have to be addressed because it's real. It's almost as though people have to be deprogrammed like they were in a cult. So my suggestion is read those books about how people leave cults and deprogram from that, because that's basically what we're seeing. And for the religious community and for the Christians that have to face that, like I said, that's between them and God. They are going to have to face have that conviction and pray for forgiveness for it, because it's really deeply seated, and it's certainly not making God pleased, because look at how many people tonight, guys, have said that they were part of the church, they saw the hypocrisy, and they want nothing to do with it anymore. That cannot be pleasing to the Lord when your job is supposed to be preaching the gospel and expanding the Christian base. That is remarkable to me. Zach, you started to say something.
You know, one of the things that I think we don't talk about a ton is in the last 4 years, there's been this constant stream of disappointments. You know, we've all got someone who we look up to, who we admire, who we consider to be a good and moral person, who's still with Trump and finds a way to justify these things that we know are unjustifiable. And that's incredibly difficult. And what I would say to everybody who's part of, a faith community and they don't like the way that it's going, don't give up hope. You're going to be able to keep talking to folks, keep asking them questions, and let's see if we can get some of them back, because it's going to be a process. This Trumpism is not ending on November 3rd. It is going to be a years, maybe decades-long process of bringing people back to reality in some cases. So keep talking to them, keep asking them questions, keep encouraging them to look into new things, because it really is sad when somebody who you love and respect continues to support someone who does not deserve a single vote.
You're right.
I think it goes that root cause we've been talking to Zach too about disinformation. We've had some interesting conversations as we get close to the election and the next phase of our work. I think the Lincoln Project. We've had some great conversations about what is the foundation of Trumpism, and I think the situation is that disinformation network, that massive propaganda, that cult-like information realm, right? That is very toxic. I think we have definitely had conversations with us. And some of our experts in those issues, that one of the things we're going to have to face, I think, as an organization that is, pro-democracy and to defeat Trumpism, is that foundation of all of this is this flow of toxic, misinformation. And that's exactly what she was just talking about in a lot of ways. Maybe it's cloaked in religion, maybe it's cloaked in a cult of personality, but we do have a situation here in the United States that is kind of tough, where people don't know truth, that truth is actually to be questioned. And when you have that kind of a situation, I think in a culture, in a society, it undermines everything. So we're going to have some very hard conversations, I think, in the United States of America about what is truth. If we can't agree on what's truth between us, and where do we go from there? So it's such a vast question. I mean, I'm not a smart guy. I know smart people, and hopefully they're going to start figuring it out. But it is a very scary situation that we have to address.
Well, let me just say that Fred is very much a smart guy. He's being modest.
That's
but also, on a lighter note, there are going to be some really weird Thanksgivings this year, like the weirdest Thanksgivings ever.
Right?
Because, a lot of the Trump people have no idea that he's about to get blown out.
Right.
They've been following Fox News and OAN and Breitbart, and things have been hunky-dory there. So there are going to be some surprise folks in a few days.
Come on, Zach. They're going to take back the House. Yep. What are you talking about? They're going to win the House back. It's going to be a landslide. we're delusional. We're the ones that are crazy here. Everything's fine. Oh, my goodness. One last tweet.
Ooh, more tweets.
Yes. We got a pumpkin tweet. My kid's feelings about the last 4 years.
That's such an awesome pumpkin.
Thank you.
That is the greatest pumpkin.
If your kid made that pumpkin,
that is awesome.
They are going to be very successful.
I want to see it at night with the flames.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Molly's mom, no sleep till Biden.
My God.
Yes, you win the tweets tonight, Molly.
Way to go, Molly's mom. That's awesome.
Love it. Well, thank you guys.
I love that pumpkin.
Before I let you go, Zach, I want you to talk a little bit about our crushing bots and troll takedown thing that's happening, because people have been asking about it. So talk a little bit about the troll hunters training that we've got going on out there, and then you guys are free to go and drink some more.
well, thank you so much for having us. And yeah, we've just been incredibly humbled by the amount of folks that have showed up to talk about how to stomp the trolls. The reason that we're doing this is because we know that misinformation is flowing very heavily from Russia, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from China. And we go into YouTube and we identify videos that are full of misinformation or being amplified by bots. And we teach people how to spot those and then block those. And the reason that we focus so heavily on YouTube is because all the nonsense you're seeing in that, guy from high school that you haven't talked to in 10 years, but you're friends with on Facebook's page, that's all coming from YouTube. So we want to nip as much of that in the bud as we possibly can. We've trained over 1,000 people already. We hope that they are going on to train more folks as well. And if you go to the website and you start tagging some of these videos, you're going to notice that there are Lincoln Project supporters and team members and Own the Room supporters and team members all over the place, letting folks know this is disinformation. And we're going to start seeing more and more of these get taken down. And that's how we get our discourse back on track, right? The reason that people end up believing these outlandish things is because they've been conditioned to believe it, because they see these headlines over and over and over again. Stuff like the Pope has endorsed Donald Trump, stuff that we know not to be true, but if you just see it and your friend has posted, you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy. It's actually factually untrue and it's misinformation. And so we want as many folks as possible to be aware of what's going on out there and as well as aware of how to combat it. And so enormous credit to Bill and Adam from Own the Room. They've set up a great program and we'd love to have more folks join us in the coming days.
Fantastic. StompTheTrolls.com, yes?
Love it.
And one last Abe sighting before we go out tonight.
Yeah.
Let's cheer to Friday,
Abe
guys.
Lincoln.
4 days to go. 4 days to go.
Abe looks rough.
Hopefully that's going to be all
For
of
those
us.
of y'all that don't know, this is our incredible political operations director, Lucas Holtz. Without Lucas, I don't know if any of us could do the things that we're doing. So we love him. And he also is like a real spitting image for Abraham Lincoln. It's like kind of ridiculous how much he looks like Abraham Lincoln.
Well, thank you, Lucas. We love you. And we appreciate you being the model for our Riding with Biden sign. You're doing a great job. If this political thing doesn't work out, you got a second career. All right, guys. Good to see you. Thank you so much. I'm going to close it out with a little bit of business for us. Thanks guys.
Tara.
Have a great weekend. So before we close out the evening tonight, just want to give you guys an update on some of the things that we're doing coming up. Tomorrow, we have an incredible partnership with Revolt TV. We are continuing our outreach to the Black community and pushing Get Out the Vote efforts for the Black community. So in partnership with Revolt Black News, AXSD Media, and co-sponsored by Grassroots Law Project and the Black Male Voter Project, the Lincoln Project is hosting an urgent panel discussion called Vote or Die, the Black Male Impact. And it's just days before the election. It's featuring some of the most prominent Black men in entertainment and activism today, including Offset from the Migos. If you guys know who the Migos are, Offset, that's Cardi B's husband. Tip, T.I. Harris, Yellow Pain, Lee Merritt, and Bakari Selders, hosted by Big Tigger. And it will be closely examining Black men's political engagement and the importance of voting to ensure that Black male voices are heard. So that is tomorrow at 3 o'clock live. It'll be live streaming on the Revolt TV streaming, and also right here on Lincoln Project streaming channel as well, if you want to check that out. So yeah, Big Tigger, Tip, T.I., Offset. If you guys are hip hop fans, check out the panel. Also, before we go, I want to shout out one of our super fans, Infinity Chick. Thank you so much. You're always there. You've been boosting our likes. Another shout out to our super fan, Infinity Chick. Thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate all of you. And one last thing, be sure to check out our sister program, Vote for America, hosted by the wonderful Jennifer Horn. It airs daily at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and you can find it streaming on our own Lincoln Project YouTube channel. And of course, we've got election night coming. Election night, 8:30 p.m. Be sure to join us. We'll have special guests. We'll have some of the whole LPTV crew, Lincoln Project folks that you may or may not have seen in the past. Everybody's going to be hanging out with us on election night, but we will have election coverage starting at 8:30. More to come. Big thank you again to Matt Kaufman, Zack Czajkowski, and Fred Wellman. And of course, an appearance by Honest Abe and Tiki, wherever he is. He's somewhere around here too. On that note, I want to thank you guys. We're going to take you out with a clip from the podcast, I believe. And Ron, and who's on the podcast tonight? I lost my notes. Oh, yeah, here it is. Jennifer Horn. How could I forget Jennifer? Here's a clip from the podcast with Ron Steslow and Jennifer Horn, and they are talking about the pro-life argument against Donald Trump. Have a great weekend,
to
guys.
look into your heart. Children sleeping on concrete floors in cages. Our grandparents dying alone in nursing homes. Our loved ones gasping for their last breath in ICUs where they literally cannot touch or feel, have human contact as they leave this world. There is no pro-life argument for Donald Trump.
Evangelicals, Christians of every denomination, and believers of every faith have never had a greater champion, not even close, in the White House than you have right now. I think you know that.
Jeffers? Yes. Prayer? Let's pray together, may we? Yes.
Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus.
Have you ever asked God for forgiveness? Why do I have to, repent? Why do I have to ask for forgiveness?
Skillful and godly wisdom have entered into the heart of our president.
You ask a lot of stupid questions.
I have never seen a more biblical president than I have seen in Donald Trump.
So right now, let every demonic network.
You are the enemy of the people.
Let it be broken. Let it be torn down in the name of Jesus.
Here
is the Republican platform.
And if you don't support me, you're going to be so goddamn poor.
If President Trump is not reelected,
Here is the Word of God.
there is going to be a backlash against people of faith like we cannot imagine.
Where do you stand?
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
I watch a man that comes out and fights for righteousness.
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
The Pope would have only wished and prayed
Thank you, sir, for uniting our nation and calling us to prayer.
that Donald Trump would have been president.
I think the Pope needs to seek Donald Trump's forgiveness.
He's a pussy. I think God put him there. Get that son of a bitch off the field.
Let the angel of the Lord encamp around about him.
God raised up, I believe, Donald Trump.
To say no to President Trump would be saying no to God.
I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Romans 13 does give President Trump moral authority to use whatever force necessary,
I'm going to bomb the shit out of
You
him.
need to send in 35,000.
including assassination.
This book right here will tell you how to vote.
I am confident that the Lord is at work here.
Grab him by the pussy.
He's had a change of heart.
Ridiculous bullshit.
If you do not write that P.O. box and you do not call that toll-free number, you're going to write your checks to Paula White Ministry. You will never see sustainment in your life, and your dream will die.
Trump is a test. Whether you're even saved. They can act differently for different people. Somehow God put him in this position.
And everybody said, amen.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. This is a hoax. This is a terrible hoax perpetrated on our country.
Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Just watching my algorithms get crushed. I guess I did something to piss off the Instagram gods, so hopefully you're seeing this stuff anyway. We'll do what we can. Talk to you soon.